marginalized special areas such as the townships and the rural areas. They are agile and adaptable in a world that is volatile and fast-changing. But they are also vulnerable, especially if we do not enable them to adapt to new global standards, digital technologies, and climate-smart markets. It is up to us as policymakers to ensure that they are effectively enabled through policy and targeted ecosystem support. Dear colleagues, this meeting is aimed precisely at doing exactly that, empowering us with knowledge, allowing us to share best practices, and enabling us to forge new strategic partnerships at both bilateral and multilateral levels in order to strengthen our country-level MSME support ecosystems. Global value chains are rapidly changing, with trade protectionism threatening markets and MSMEs, especially in developing and least developed countries. This is something that we need to be upfront about in this meeting and find practical ways to soften the impact. Here at home, we are paying greater attention to regional value chains, leveraging the South African Customs Union, the Southern African Development Community, and the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. I'm very happy to see so many African ministers participating in this ministerial meeting. There are important lessons we can learn about the benefits of regional trade integration, especially from East Asia, who also provides some important markers how to align MSMEs with broader industrialization efforts. Program Director, value chains are now becoming greener and digital. Failure to keep up will see many countries and their MSMEs left behind. New green markets associated with the circular economy offer opportunities from waste pickers through to high-growth clean tech startups. At the same, new green compliance requirements threaten to become a new trade barrier and preclude MSMEs from export markets. Similarly, digital technology is allowing MSMEs to access global markets, financial services, and a range of business development support services through the online platform. But the digital divide remains real, and without more targeted support for skills, the gap remains extreme. By example, Africa has 18% of the world's population, but receives less than 2% of global venture capital flows. This has resulted in the continent's best talent moving to tech hubs elsewhere to register and commercialize their intellectual property, and we ought to fix that. In South Africa, our MSMEs funding gap is estimated at $20 billion, with early-stage startups and entrepreneurs from marginalized communities the worst affected. This, despite our efforts as government to de-risk credit extension through guarantees and blended instruments. The funding need is enormous, and like other developing countries and less developed ones, we have the added disadvantage of health, education, and infrastructure deficits, which we must finance. This global SME Ministerial must propose solutions to this question of capital access. Colleagues, here is the call to action. Let this ministerial meeting mark the beginning of a bold new global compact for MSME development, one that expands access to markets, unlocks affordable finance, accelerates digital inclusion, and ensures that women, youth, and underserved communities are not spectators, but architects of economic transformation. Let us commit to practical, measurable actions that position MSMEs as central pillars of resilience, innovation, and sustainability. Let us work towards a global enabling system where no entrepreneur is left behind because of where they live, how much they earn, and who they are. Let us make the call to action we adopt tomorrow, not a ceremonial conclusion, but a rallying cry for ongoing, coordinated, and courageous action. In closing, Program Director, I wish to extend a deep appreciation to Ms. Pamela Cook-Hamilton, the Executive Director of the IETC, for her steadfast leadership and partnership with the department in bringing this global gathering to life. When we initiated talks, we were not certain of the outcomes, but here we are today because of her sterling leadership. And to you, Madam, this we really appreciate as the country and as the MSME ecosystem. I look forward to the productive, visionary, and impactful deliberations that will unfold over the next 2 days. Let us rise to the moment, not with rhetoric, but with resolve. I thank you.
Let's thank the Minister. Profound thanks really to this very insightful set of remarks from the dynamic and committed Minister who insisted to be able to still connect despite the important session in Parliament, and we wish her good luck in that. Let me also stand on what the Minister indicated, which is really that the outcome, the call to action from here, need to live beyond the papers and the words on paper and really be turned into action as you all go back to your countries and communities. So let me then now reintroduce my sister, the Executive Director of the ITC, Ms. Pamela Cook-Hamilton, who has been instrumental in ensuring that we're all here today and has singular focus and drive, really, and personal connection and networks, and also supported by colleagues at the UN Small Business Agency, ensured that we could be here having this really important conversation. So welcome again to South Africa and welcome on stage, and thank you for joining this.
Thank you so much, our UN resident coordinator here, Nelson, and my good friend. It's such an honor to stand here before you this morning. When we first conceptualized this idea, I must admit, I never quite imagined it like this, but there's nothing quite like seeing a vision actually emerge into reality. So, Honorable Minister Stella Ndabeni, I think she has been one of the most dynamic ministers I've worked with. Her energy, her leadership, and her willingness to test the boundaries of what was possible has made all this possible today. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and a very warm welcome to our first ever Global SME Ministerial. I want to express my heartfelt thanks to the UN Deputy Secretary General, Amina J. Mohammed, who you'll hear from shortly through also video message. And she will, of course, drive home what is at stake today. It's not just the fate of SMEs around the world, but the health of our multilateral system and the relationships of trust that this system relies on. And I want to thank the government of South Africa in particular for their willingness to host and for rolling out the red carpet for us. Thank you so much. And of course to the Minister and the Small Business Development Agency, represented by the Director General here. Thank you so much for the impressive team that you presented and how this has been such a wonderful partnership for us every step of the way. It's really rare to see history being made like this, and rarer still to find such like-minded partners who share the same values, passions, and hopes. And on that note, I also want to give special thanks to Ambassador Muzukisi Kobo, did I do it right? For his friendship, his support, and his guidance along this journey from the Geneva side. And of course, this event would not have been possible without the support of our partners. I'd like to pull out especially Afro-Exim Bank, who's represented here, as well as the Public Foundation that has been responsible for so much of you all being here today. I'd also like to thank Absa Bank Kenya, the Africa Leadership and Dialogue Institute, MasterCard Foundation, Alibaba, South African Presidency of the G20, the Gauteng Growth and Development Agency that sponsored our cocktail and wonderful dinner last night, the Industrial Development Corporation, One Valley, South Africa's Small Enterprise Development and Finance Agency, Startup 20 South Africa, Visa, and the World Intellectual Property Organization. And you can see from the number of partners the level of interest and commitment that has been shown for this event. We thank you for your commitment and we thank you for your trust. When we announced at the ITC 60th anniversary celebrations a year ago our intention to host this ministerial, it was after we had done some fairly extensive reflections on what we had learned from 6 decades of helping SMEs grow, compete, and trade. And what we saw was this, that whether we were at events devoted to climate crisis or conferences devoted to peace building and conflict resolution or decision-making forums on trade, the role of SMEs was finally part of the conversation. Now that was a big feat in and of itself, and we and so many partners had fought around the clock to make that possible. But there was still something missing, something that was vital, because no one was talking yet to SME ministers at a global scale, and that was creating very real challenges on the ground. From that great epiphany, this platform was born. An arena where SMEs and the issues that are shaping collective lives and their fortunes addressed at high political levels from both the global north and the global south for the first time. From this platform and this arena, we hope that a political voice emerges that will advocate in every forum where SME issues are at stake on behalf of their needs and their hopes. Because too often SMEs are having to bear the brunt of the world's disorder and chaos, whether from the ravages of climate change, the horrors of conflict, or the growing precarity of global supply chains. And just when it looked like it couldn't get any harder, new roadblocks emerge on the way to growth. Just this month, Lesotho declared a national state of disaster in the face of potential tariffs that could annihilate the textile sector and wreak havoc on the lives and livelihoods of the people behind it. And too many SMEs in too many countries are finding that the relatively predictable trading system that they had relied on is being pushed to a near breaking point. We talk about AGOA as well, which may not be renewed in September, and the implications of that for Africa. We can't let this keep happening, and we don't have to, and that's why we're here. I know that many of your ministries are recently established, and that it's often an outright battle to get the resources you need to deliver on your mandates, and to make sure your perspectives are heard and your requests answered when meeting with your country's cabinets or with Parliament. Yet even in the face of that, you are still expected to make the impossible possible and to make miracles happen when too often miracles seem to be in short supply. And yet you deliver anyway, because that's what it means to serve. It's a reality we know all too well ourselves at ITC and across the UN system. You'll have seen the headlines, I'm sure, of the crises that have beset our international community and the tough conversations and decisions underway on how to move forward. But I want to tell you this. These crises have only served to strengthen our resolve to continue standing up for the small and the vulnerable, advocating on behalf of SMEs who have no choice but to keep going. We will never back down from that, no matter how hard it gets. At ITC, we have over 60 years' experience and expertise in supporting trade-led development. We have tools and approaches that work and a strong track record in enabling connected, sustainable, and inclusive trade that lifts everybody. And from that experience and expertise also comes some valuable perspective. These aren't the first crises we've seen. These aren't the only inflection points that we have experienced. And it's why we believe firmly in playing the long game. Over the next 2 days, we've asked you all to focus your attention around 3 topics: fostering green competitiveness in SMEs, spurring forward the digital transformation, and improving access to finance. We chose these themes because they reflect issues that will define the fate of SMEs around the world, irrespective of whether you're an entrepreneur in West Africa, a woman-led business in Latin America, or a digital freelancer in Central Asia. They represent opportunities for innovation and prosperity, but also risks to SMEs' very survival if not managed well. They require long-term planning, not quick fixes, and they reflect what we've heard from you over the years as you work to find ways to support firms in your countries and in your regions. Now, this ministerial is not intended to be a talk shop. I don't do those. Where the ideas raised here ultimately stay here. There's no place for posturing or politics. This is not just one more event to mark time until Karma Days arrive. This is a space for us to all get down to business, to roll up our sleeves, marshal our collective knowledge, expertise, and our energy, and find solutions across these three areas that will bring the benefits of trade within reach of more SMEs, which is exactly what you've all been asking for. When you go back to your capitals, your ministries, your cabinet meetings, and your meetings with heads of state and government, you'll be taking back with you concrete solutions with the evidence to back them up. Solutions that have already been tried and tested in many other countries, both similar to and different from your own. And you'll also have learned about what doesn't work and what pitfalls to be wary of and why. And as you seek to put these solutions into practice, I hope that you will see ITC as a partner of choice in helping more of your SMEs go global through trade. Finally, I hope that you will go home reinvigorated, knowing that even on those days where you may feel like you're the only one fighting SME's corner at your cabinet or in your government, you're actually part of a dedicated global community working to ensure SMEs can thrive and that no one is left behind. And that community will set an example that we hope other decision makers throughout the world will follow. We're living at a time where disasters are legion, where international cooperation is being treated as an option, not a necessity, where pessimism risks winning the fight over hope, and where idealism risks being dismissed as folly. We're seeing too many people throwing in the towel, ready to walk away from decades of work to shore up our multilateral system and the values that underpin it. It's a situation that makes it far too easy for us to waste our precious energy putting out fires, papering over the cracks in our system just to get from one day to the next. And all while hoping that cooler heads will someday prevail, thereby denying our own agency in making a different future possible. If that doesn't change right now, the results will spell disaster, not just for the SMEs we champion, but for the entire world, including the smallest and most vulnerable among us. Yesterday, as you will know, we held a TPO leadership dialogue, bringing together representatives from trade promotion organizations around the world. They told us about their experiences helping SMEs export, the innovations that they've developed to meet a never-ending array of needs, and the strains they're under in this chaotic world in which we live. And what I heard over and over again is the same refrain, that they're excited to work more closely with you, both on the main tracks of the ministerial and in the other areas that matter most for the SMEs. They won't give up, and neither will we. These TPO representatives are here with us for the duration of the ministerial. If you look behind you, you'll see a pretty full room. As are the entrepreneurs and small business leaders, development institution officials, and so many others who together make up the fabric of the SME ecosystem. I encourage you all to meet with them over the coming days and find opportunities for engagement and alignment, which together you can put into practice on your return home. As I said before, this is the first time that ITC has convened a global meeting at this political level, and it won't be the last. But making this ministerial meeting possible didn't happen overnight. It's thanks to the tireless efforts of several extraordinary people, including both my own ITC team and our partners at the South African Department of Small Business Development. They've pulled out all the stops to make this event possible because they believe in the vision and in its potential. And they've delivered what will become a legacy project from South Africa's historic G20 presidency, showing why trade and SME development must be put squarely at the heart of the global economic agenda. Finally, I want to close with both a promise and an appeal. First, our promise that we at ITC will take the ideas and the energy and the optimism of this week and run with it. We can count on that. And now our appeal, that you make full use of the political voice that has emerged from this global SME Ministerial, whether in your home countries or when you engage with your peers on the international stage. If we can each do that, then in 2 years' time, when we reconvene in this format, I know we will have some impressive results to show from our labors. But of course, I can't predict exactly what the future holds. So I ask you to keep this in mind, not just over the coming days, but over the coming years, given the near certainty of more crises showing up on our doorsteps. And I hope that this reminder will serve us all well at moments when we might otherwise risk losing our nerve. It was just over 30 years ago that South African President Nelson Mandela, in his autobiography, The Long Walk to Freedom, told the world that despite the horrors he had witnessed and the trials he had experienced, optimism is what he still carried in his heart. He reminded us that we must always keep our head pointed toward the sun, one's feet moving forward. Because as he said, while, and I quote, "There were many dark moments when my faith in humanity was sorely tested, but I would not and could not give myself up to despair," close quote, as defeat was then sure to follow. And this is a truth that must guide our deliberations over the next 2 days, because if there was anybody who had reason to give up in despair, it was Nelson Mandela, Madiba. So thank you all, and let's do it.
Thank you so much, and let's give my sister, the Executive Director, another round of applause, please. And it is only befitting that you ended with a quote from the beloved Madiba, because in South Africa here we're celebrating Mandela Month, and at the end of July is a time to remind us of his constant call to action, that it is our individual and collective responsibility to constantly work for the well-being of people and planet. So thank you again for your leadership, your vision, and your commitment in this regard. It now gives me great pleasure to introduce a leader whose voice continues to inspire global action for inclusive development and sustainable transformation. She has recently affirmed that small and medium enterprises, including startups, can lead the green and digital twin transitions, but only if we design systems that supports sustainable business models from idea to investment. So please join me in warmly welcoming, albeit through a video message, the United Nations Deputy Secretary General, Her Excellency Amina J. Mohammed, who sent a special message to this gathering.
Honourable Stella Tembisa Ndabeni, Ministry of Small Business Development, Republic of South Africa. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's a real pleasure to join you. And I thank the Government of South Africa and the International Trade Ministry of Small Business Development, Republic of South Africa. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Honourable Stella Tembisa Ndabeni, Ministry of Small Business Development, International Trade Centre, along with the Executive Director, Pamela Coke-Hamilton, for convening this important ministerial meeting. This first global SME ministerial meeting comes at a pivotal moment, and it is especially fitting that we meet here in Africa, home to some of the world's most dynamic entrepreneurs, growing regional markets, and millions of small businesses that are already delivering solutions, creating jobs, and contributing to more sustainable and inclusive development. Excellencies, small and medium-sized enterprises are the backbone of economies worldwide. They account for the majority of jobs worldwide, support livelihoods, and drive innovation and inclusion. Yet, too often, they are excluded from the policy discussions and the financial flows that shape economies. And in times of crisis, they are among the most vulnerable. This ministerial meeting sends a clear and important message. SMEs are not just part of the development conversation, they are central to it. Now we must match that message with meaningful action. The priorities on your agenda, green transitions, digital transformation, and access to finance, reflect the real pressing needs of SMEs. These are not abstract policy goals. They are practical tools that enable small businesses to grow, to compete, and to contribute fully to sustainable development. But this is not the time to scale back, it is the time to scale up. With just 5 years to go, we must accelerate action across all 17 Sustainable Development Goals. A few weeks ago, at the 4th Financing Development Conference, countries endorsed the Severe Commitment, a meaningful step forward for multilateral cooperation. It outlines 3 urgent priorities. First, catalyzing large-scale investment in sustainable development. Second, addressing the debt and development crisis. And third, reforming the international financial architecture to better serve the most vulnerable. These priorities matter deeply for SMEs, particularly in developing and emerging economies. When small businesses can access affordable financing, navigate regulatory environments, and connect to markets, they unlock jobs, boost local economies, and lift communities out of poverty. And when women and young children and people are part of the story, the results are even stronger. Across Africa and around the world, women and young people are creating solutions, strengthening resilience, and driving inclusive growth, often in the most challenging circumstances. They deserve fair access to capital, to skills, to technology, and to decision-making spaces. Excellencies, friends, we need leadership, investment, and coordinated sustained action to empower SMEs, advance inclusive growth, and deliver on the SDGs. Let us use this meeting to craft solutions together. Solutions that not only support SMEs in your countries, but that tell a larger story, that multilateralism is alive, that cooperation is possible, and that even in uncertain times, leaders can still come together to solve the challenges that matter most. The United Nations is your trusted partner, and our resident coordinators are on the ground, working hand in hand with governments and stakeholders, supporting national priorities, advancing policy reforms, and helping to translate global goals into local action. So let's move forward with determination. Let's empower SMEs to thrive, and let's build a world that truly leaves no one behind. Thank you, and I look forward to hearing the outcomes of this meeting.
Different regions around the world, and they have been patiently waiting on stage for this moment, and we thank small businesses your presence. And they really have been at the forefront, just like a lot of you in the audience, in driving this shared commitment to trade-led development anchored on the work of small and medium enterprises. So I will briefly just introduce the 5 ministers you'll be listening to, or heads of delegation, and they will come up one after the other to be able to give their statements. So we will be hearing first from the Honorable Lisa Cummins, who is the Minister of Energy and Business Development of Barbados. She will be followed by Honorable Dr. Rania Al-Mashat, who is the Minister of Planning, Economic Development and International Cooperation of the Arab Republic of Egypt. We will be hearing as well from Honorable Dr. Jimoke Oduwole, who is the Minister in the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment of Nigeria. We'll then also be hearing from His Excellency Charles Jose, who's Under Secretary of Multilateral Affairs and International Economic Relations in the Department of Foreign Affairs, Republic of the Philippines. So thank you all for being here, and we look forward to your presentation. And lastly, we will also hear from Her Excellency Helene Budliger Tida, I hope I got that right, who is the State Secretary for Economic Affairs in Switzerland. So thank you all, ministers, and let's collectively acknowledge them and thank them in advance already for their remarks, whilst I invite the First Minister to come up to the podium.
Good morning to everyone. I want, first of all, to acknowledge our very gracious hosts, the government and people of South Africa. We heard earlier from the Minister with responsibility for small business development of the Republic of South Africa, and I want to acknowledge all that they have done to ensure that this meeting has been and will continue to be a success. I want also to acknowledge my fellow ministers here on the stage. I want to acknowledge the UN Deputy Secretary General who just spoke. And of course, I want to thank the International Trade Center, its entire team, and especially the Executive Director of the International Trade Center. If there is one person at the leadership of the ITC who understands some of the things that are being raised here, not by theory, but by action and involvement and experience, it is the Executive Director of the International Trade Center, Ms. Pamela Coke-Hamilton. Having worked in our own region, having worked on behalf of the Caribbean region and her own country, and here at a global level, she brings the expertise that is really necessary to give birth and life to an initiative such as this. And I want to congratulate her and her team at the ITC for conceptualizing the epiphany and giving birth to it in this inaugural session. The Caribbean, of course, and the Republic of South Africa, we have an extensive history. I'm pleased to see that continue to grow and prosper in this post-apartheid era. Together, the Caribbean and the African region more broadly, we are one community, and I'm very pleased on behalf of my own Prime Minister, the Honourable Mia Amor-Motley, to commit to continuing to build those political and economic relationships between all of our economies and to strengthening the ties among our people. The collaboration that we have seen in the last few years with the establishment of an office of the Africa Exim Bank in Barbados to serve the region is a tangible demonstration of that commitment. And their participation in supporting today's event, this week's events, is a further demonstration of the collaboration between our institutions and in support of our regions. All of us here agree that enhancing SME competitiveness is essential for sustainable development and the economic resilience of all of our economies. And we've just heard from the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations about those kinds of critical issues. This is especially true for us in the Caribbean. Small island developing states like Barbados, we need our MSMEs to be competitive if we are to create jobs, generate and leverage innovation, to increase domestic consumption, lower our import bill, reduce trade surpluses, and export growth. We need to be able to leverage our MSMEs. As a result, Barbados has placed MSME development high on our national agenda. We just launched, just a few months ago, our new MSME strategy for 2025. In Geneva, at the World Trade Organization, our ambassador, Ambassador Matthew Wilson, who is here with us today, we chair the MSME committee. So it is clear the will is there, that we are all here from our countries and from our institutions. The will is demonstrably here among us. The issues that are on the agenda over these 3 days, we've all agreed, are fundamental. They include digital trade, we've spoken about that, the green and the blue economy. I'm also minister with responsibility for energy in my country, and certainly the green transition and the energy transition, they sit within the bosom of my team. Access to inclusive and affordable financing, that has been a central and a continuing theme for as long as all of us can remember SME development and export development. So we know that small businesses remain among the most vulnerable, especially in small countries. They are vulnerable to external shocks. They are vulnerable to climate change, to supply chain disruptions, and to global geopolitics. But we also know that from Europe to South America, to Africa, and to the Caribbean, the concept of small businesses will mean very different things. We most definitely know that the number of small businesses that grow from large franchise entities remains small. We know that generational wealth that is often imagined is often not realized because the structures oftentimes do not exist. So I want to use today's opportunity to make a call. And I want that call to be that we treat to different countries and different regions, different types of businesses across different sectors with a differentiated support model. In all our countries, with the support of agencies like the International Trade Center, we can build that complete and coherent ecosystem that we talked about just yesterday in the TPO Leadership Dialogue. The reality of it is, and I want to pause for a moment to draw us back into our own negotiations on trade agreements. Many of the small businesses in our countries, many of the micro businesses in our countries do not sit in the G20 fora. They do not sit in the WTO. They do not sit in policy fora like these. It is important that we continue to give voice, as has been done here today by the ITC, to these agencies by bringing them to the table so they can speak for themselves about the issues that they are encountering. But more importantly, it is critical that as we bring them to the table, that national action then allows for those things to break into tangible interventions, meaningful interventions that speak to exactly where they are, that translate policy into implementation, that translates an identification in the white paper of access to affordable financing into a restructuring of the financial ecosystems in our country. For my own country, Prime Minister Motley has been advocating as it relates to climate and development for the Bridgetown Initiative. That is a restructuring of the global financial architecture. And equally so, in the MSME space, there is an opportunity for us to address the outcome of affordable access to financing with a restructuring of the financial architecture. And I will speak about that in a few moments. If we intend together in this space to have the ecosystem to grow and to expand the role being played by SMEs, there must be more required of us. From governments who make policy, to industry who will scope out return on investment and new opportunities, to financiers who provide debt, equity, venture, and angel financing, there must be more. In this ecosystem, we must all, across all lines, be in complete alignment. From international to regional agencies working towards a common goal, we need that alignment. From advocacy groups to innovators, to regulators, to visionaries, the same applies. Individually, in each of our countries, the systems exist. But the question is, how do we get those systems to coexist across boundaries in order to allow our SMEs to thrive and to grow? So if I, in Barbados, in my own ministry and among my team, work to develop a structured approach where the small business in Barbados can combine skills and vision with the business in Jamaica, and together they connect with a partner in South America and then export to Africa, benefiting in the process from innovative approaches to blended financing through entities like export-import banks, regional development banks, and private sector funds, we can have alignment. Agencies like the ITC and others then in turn can continue to build on what we started here, to provide the institutional shepherding through markets across companies, across businesses, and across countries to build a new value and supply chain that combines businesses. With this, we can transform the national and global landscape of the SME space. With alignment, business support organizations like the Small Business Association of Barbados, which is here, in Brazil and Ghana, can connect with counterparts in Costa Rica and in St. Lucia. Minister from St. Lucia, you are here, to create new value and supply chains, unlock market opportunities, create decent jobs, especially for youth and women, and build more inclusive and climate-resilient economies. With alignment and structure and with intentional interventions, we can go further. Strengthening SME ecosystems through a system-wide approach is not just a development goal. It is a necessity for our survival and our sustainability. In a global environment with so much instability, we need to know that we built systems that last and relationships that adapt and pivot that can withstand turbulence and challenges. So ITC's mandate and its work continue to be so relevant in this moment. We need the ITC. We need institutions like the ITC. We need leadership like those in the ITC and all of the agencies here in this room. And we need to ensure that this inaugural SME Ministerial provides a timely opportunity for countries to share our experiences and concrete solutions, reaffirm them, and then execute on that need for tailored support to SMEs, especially in small island developing states. We need here to highlight region-specific needs, such as digital access, and plug the solutions into the ecosystem that we've been speaking about. We need to strengthen collaboration between governments, development organizations, and business support organizations, and ultimately to build a consensus among key actions that can make a tangible difference to SMEs. So as I close, we have lots to do, not just today, but especially when we leave Johannesburg. Barbados, on behalf of the entire Caribbean, proudly supports the call to action that will be issued at this ministerial. And once again, we thank the ITC and the government of South Africa for the commitment and the vision in bringing us all together to highlight why investing in SMEs is investing in our future. We can see the change within our reach. And it is my hope that we walk away from this meeting today with absolute clarity of purpose, a commitment to intention, and a commitment to alignment. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Minister. Now let me welcome Dr. Al-Mashat to come and give her remarks.
Well, good morning, and let me also join the Minister from Barbados in thanking our hosts. We are here, and we're also going to be attending the G20, so South Africa is truly reflecting the voice of developing and emerging economies. I also want to recognize the United Nations and, of course, the Executive Director of the ITC, who has wonderfully assembled all of this. And just as she mentioned, looking at the room, the number of stakeholders just reflect how important the topic is, but also that multilateralism is still alive and can deliver. That is when all of us work together. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, it's my great pleasure to join you today in the significant inauguration of the first ever global ministerial meeting focusing on small and medium enterprises. Many thanks to the International Trade Center for convening this dialogue at a critical juncture for global economic and trade outlook. For decades, small and medium-sized enterprises have proven their profound ability to transform economies in developing countries. They act as catalysts for change and development, influencing a broad range of economic and social aspects. They became one of the most powerful engines of growth, prosperity, and innovation. While they face $5.2 trillion of a financing gap, according to the World Bank, SMEs are often the most agile and adaptable in early-stage economies, contributing to economic resilience and inclusive growth. Ladies and gentlemen, in Africa, only 39% of the population is actively participating in the labor market. This statistic is a call to action. We are a continent rich in natural and human capital, yet we continue to face major structural gaps in employment, productivity, and global market integration. To bridge these gaps, we must unlock the full potential of small and medium-sized enterprises, which globally represent over 90% of businesses, up to 70% of jobs, and more than 50% of global GDP. We can see as well in the Middle East, they are key to diversifying economies, while in sub-Saharan Africa and other regions, they fuel employment, local solutions, and global exports. In Egypt, SMEs account for close to 40% of GDP and 3/4 of the workforce. Our National Development Strategy, Egypt Vision 2030, places SMEs at the center of structural reforms in priority sectors, including green growth, regional trade, and digital innovation. The establishment of the Micro, Small, and Medium Enterprise Development Agency, MISMEDA, in 2004 has created strong foundations for the growth of SMEs in Egypt. Through its comprehensive support from financial services to capacity building programs, as well as export promotion and regulatory reforms, MISMEDA has helped transform the business environment, enabling SMEs to become key drivers of economic growth, innovation, and job creation in the country. This has not only contributed to economic resilience, but has also helped position SMEs as a cornerstone of Egypt's sustainable development pathways and towards having a success story to tell. In 2024, the government of Egypt has established the Interministerial Committee on Entrepreneurship and Innovation, which is chaired by His Excellency the Prime Minister, and I represent the head for the ministers, and it ensures alignment across government development partners, the private sector, focusing on funding, regulation, and innovation ecosystems. We have the privilege of being the main convener towards addressing the regulatory barriers, promoting entrepreneurship, and supporting growth of innovative businesses in the country. Also, through the digital platforms such as the Hub for Advisory and Financial Services, the platform Hafiz, which is launched in 2023, we have connected over 22,000 SMEs and startups to advisory services, financing instruments, tenders, and technical tools, particularly in underserved regions. This is complemented by our mobilization of over $15 billion for the private sector through development finance between 2020 and 2025, and over $300 million in targeted technical assistance for SME development, digitization, and trade facilitation. We believe that SMEs are not passive players, but strategic actors of economic diversification, resilience, and value creation. In this vein, and to ensure that development journey is country-led, Egypt has launched in 2022, as part of COP27, as part of our presidency's initiatives, the Nexus of Water, Food, and Energy, a country platform, the Nuafi platform, which plays a critical role in supporting SMEs by creating an enabling environment for their growth and sustainability. In 2023, we also launched the South-South and Triangular Cooperation Strategy to advance peer-to-peer learning and capitalize on successful practices to upscale and replicate in other countries. We are happy to get invited as a guest member within the G20 for the 5th year, and we are participating this week in the ministerial meeting of the G20 Development Working Group under the presidency of South Africa, where we'll be discussing the importance of global public goods, improving the national planning capacity and how governments financing their spending expenditure. Partnerships become crucial for the global SDGs implementation. The integrated national financing strategies are also proper frameworks which may accommodate the global public goods in its various forms and conditions. In today's complex trade landscape, SMEs must be empowered not only to survive but also to lead. Egypt is advancing SMEs' participation in the regional value chains using frameworks like the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, as well as supporting sector-specific trade integration, especially in agriculture, green manufacturing, and digital services. SMEs can be a champion to solve the debt dilemma in developing countries. The Pact for the Future sees SMEs as a cornerstone for realizing global long-term economic and social goals. In addition, mastering the 6 transitions of the Deputy Secretary General, Amina Mohammed, are critical for the maturation and scaling of SMEs. We just came back from the Financing for Development Conference in Sevilla, which concluded with promising commitments to support SMEs. It will provide a crucial opportunity to reshape the global financial landscape for small and medium enterprises, particularly in developing countries, through financial inclusion, technological advancement, and market access. We believe that SMEs are global public goods. Going forward, Egypt aims to deepen SME integration into global value chains, further aligning our national SME program with green and digital economy priorities, and enhancing the regulatory and innovation environment. We believe that the platforms such as Hafiz and our country platform, Noafi, can serve as regional public goods. We are open to South-South cooperation with governments and institutions across the Global South to replicate and adapt this model, offering broader access to SME advisory, financing, and digital tools. As we expressed our interest to host the first meeting of the Borrowers Forum, one of the outcomes of the Sevilla Platform for Action, and the Shared Innovation Hub proposed by the UN Secretary-General Expert Group, we warmly invite peer governments, private sector partners, and SMEs to learn from each other's best practices and lessons in supporting inclusive SME growth. Let us move beyond pilots to scalable impact. SMEs are our strongest lever for inclusive, sustainable, and resilient trade transformation. And as the World Bank has said in the report, The Middle Income Trap, the only way to overcome the middle income trap is through innovation and entrepreneurship. On behalf of Egypt, the MENA region, and the African continent, I would like to reaffirm our full commitment to multilateral collaboration, and we stand ready to work with partners across sectors and regions to ensure SMEs fulfill their promise as engines of prosperity and architects of a more just and equitable global economy. And let me conclude by three key words: government's commitment, clarity with respect to projects, and credibility among all of us to be able to work together and move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you again, Dr. Al-Mashad, for those remarks. And now let me swiftly welcome to the podium Honorable Dr. Jimoke Oduwole, the Minister in the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Industry of Nigeria. Welcome.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. Please permit me to stand on the very well adumbrated protocols this morning. Your Excellencies, Honorable Ministers, distinguished colleagues, development partners, ladies and gentlemen, it is a privilege to join this inaugural Global SME Ministerial meeting and to stand alongside partners deeply committed to transforming the future of small businesses worldwide. I thank the government of South Africa and the International Trade Center for convening us, and I bring warm greetings from the government and people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Let me specifically extend my appreciation to Honorable Stella Tembisa Ndebeni of the Republic of South Africa, and Ms. Pamela Cook-Hamilton of International Trade Center. We had the pleasure of having her in Nigeria earlier this year, and her indefatigable team for their steadfast leadership. I also commend the ITC for its tireless work in building SME competitiveness globally, efforts that are particularly vital in a trade landscape marked by volatility, unilateralism, and digital disruption. As global trade complexities rise, they not only increase economic vulnerabilities, but also stall progress towards our collective development goals. African countries, and particularly our micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, bear the brunt of these shifts and unilateral measures within the global trade landscape. Now more than ever, it is critical that we strengthen regional collaboration and forge strategic responses that empower our MSMEs to withstand shocks, scale their impact, and drive inclusive growth. Nigeria comes to this platform with a bold proposition that Africa's growth story will be written by its MSMEs, and a dual mandate to build competitive, investment-ready MSMEs at home and to shape continental frameworks that empower our entrepreneurs across borders. All of these are achievable as we design the right policies, invest in the right infrastructure, and unleash the power of our people. We're not here today to recite problems, but to demonstrate what works. Nigeria's MSME landscape as a vital economic engine. With over 70% of our population under the age of 30, Nigeria is one of the youngest nations on earth. This youth bulge, while often viewed as a challenge, is in fact our greatest comparative advantage. We are harnessing it through innovative reforms, institution building, intentional investments, and digital transformation, placing young people and small businesses at the heart of national development. Nigeria is home to over 39 million micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. They account for 96% of all businesses and contribute nearly 50% to GDP. They employ over 84% of the labor force. Any conversation on inclusive growth, job creation, or sustainable development in Nigeria and globally must emphasize the importance of SMEs. Nigeria's Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises Development Agency, SMEDAN, is implementing bold, scalable models that respond to small businesses' real-world needs, from urban tech hubs to rural cooperatives. I have an extremely energetic head of agency who's here with me today, Dr. Charles Odi, and he has championed notable initiatives which include job creation. Over 90,000 jobs were provided in Q1 of 2025 with the introduction of the Industrial Development Center, a shared facility model, cost-effective solutions that provide small businesses with access to stable electricity, professional-grade machinery, and well-equipped workspaces for a fraction of the market cost. One standout story is that of Joy Dogara, who I met at the hub just last week. She trained there 5 months ago and now produces over 600 export-quality garments for clients in the UK. Stories like hers demonstrate how shared infrastructure can unlock talent, reduce costs, and support production at scale. MSME registration portal. Over 3.6 million MSMEs have been enrolled to date, providing Nigeria with the most detailed live database on MSMEs in West Africa, enabling evidence-based policymaking and tailored support. Digital Readiness Program. In partnership with Google and Microsoft, SMEDAN is training youth in AI, digital marketing, and future of work skills. The SME Digital Academy already supports thousands of self-paced business education. Agricultural Enterprise Development. SMEDAN's flagship ADEP program has connected smallholder farmers to markets, inputs, and agro-tech platforms, tackling food insecurity and stimulating rural productivity. Green energy for MSMEs. Through the National MSME Green and Renewable Energy Initiative, youth are being trained as solar technicians and clean energy entrepreneurs, supporting both business resilience and Nigeria's energy transition. Mobile business clinics and one-stop shops. These take regulatory and technical services directly to MSMEs, decentralizing access and resolving compliance barriers in real time. Now for digital transformation, from policy championing to platform builders, Nigeria is actually digital co-trade champion for AFCFTA, and so we lead in that space, and that is actually where Nigerian youth are extremely competitive. 50% of the unicorns on the African continent are of Nigerian extraction. Nigeria's e-commerce market is projected to exceed $10 billion by 2029. Our MSMEs are not waiting for the future. They are already using WhatsApp Business, Instagram Shops, and fintech platforms to serve customers across Africa. As Africa's digital trade champion, Nigeria is leading from the front to accelerate the digitization of trade. In May 2025, the federal government of Nigeria, through the Federal Ministry of Industry and Investment, launched with the support of UNDP, a first-of-its-kind digital services directory, mapping Nigeria's digital firms across 17 sectors and enabling evidence-based policy formulation under the AfCFTA Protocol on Digital Trade. Key findings include 41% of digital entrepreneurs are under the age of 35, 64% of health tech and 48% of edutech firms are women-led. 90% of digital services firms are locally owned but globally engaged. Top export destinations include Ghana, Kenya, South Africa, Rwanda, and Egypt. Recognizing that many MSMEs remain digitally excluded, Nigeria is now rolling out a network of digital innovation hubs in partnership with entrepreneur support organizations. These hubs provide technical hands-on guidance to help MSMEs transition from informal to formal structures, integrate digital payments, inventory, and logistics tools, access finance via fintech and traditional lenders, upskill in financial literacy and digital bookkeeping, track performance and improve resilience through tailored diagnostics. The Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council reforms. Making the business environment work for MSMEs. I had the privilege of my previous role leading this initiative for the federal government for 8 years. And during my tenure as secretary to the PEBEC, I led the charge to reduce the cost, time, and complexity of doing business in Nigeria. Our mandate was clear: remove regulatory bottlenecks and enable small businesses to thrive. Some of the notable reforms implemented to improve the business environment were automation of the company's registration portal to reduce the cost and time for formalizing of businesses for MSMEs, establishment of small claims courts to ensure easy, affordable, and speedy access to justice for MSMEs, and the enactment of legislations to ensure access to credit for businesses. These interventions have improved transparency, restored trust, and delivered measurable impact for millions of entrepreneurs. In closing, Africa does not need to play catch-up. We are building our own models, and they are working. Let us leave this meeting with a unified vision, a digitally empowered, investment-ready, and youth-driven MSME ecosystem that drives prosperity for our people and resilience for our continent. Nigeria's journey is proof that reform works, technology can be democratized, and youth can drive growth, and that MSMEs are not marginal actors, but central pillars of economic transformation. We are learning that government must listen better, move faster, and partner wider to support small businesses. We have seen that digital trade is not a privilege, it is the new normal. The future of African trade is not just big, it is small, connected, and powerful. Thank you for your attention. Good morning.
Thank you again, Honorable Minister, for that. Let me now swiftly welcome to the podium His Excellency Charles Jose, who is the Undersecretary for Multilateral Affairs and International Economic Relations in the Department of Foreign Affairs, Republic of the Philippines. Thank you, Excellency.
Excellencies, Ministers, colleagues, the Philippines is honored to join this historic inaugural Global SME Ministerial meeting. We thank South Africa for its leadership under its G20 presidency and express our deep appreciation to Minister Stella Tembisa and the Beni and the Department of Small Business Development for their warm hospitality and steadfast commitment to inclusive growth. We also commend the transformative leadership of Executive Director Pamela Cook Hamilton and the dedicated teams of ITC in South Africa, whose work on the call to action and white papers provides a strong foundation for global collaboration on SME transformation. This ministerial meeting comes at a pivotal moment. Amid heightened economic uncertainty and evolving trade dynamics, SMEs are navigating an increasingly complex and uneven operating environment. While they are central to our economies, they continue to face disproportionate challenges, particularly in adapting to diverse and overlapping regulatory and standards frameworks that can increase the cost and complexity of doing business across markets. We believe that resilience must be built progressively by supporting SMEs to thrive first in their domestic markets and then enabling their expansion into regional and global value chains. This step-by-step approach demands coherent strategies and the right enablers at each stage: infrastructure, finance, capacity building, and market access. In ASEAN, we are applying this layered approach. This year, we are making substantial progress on the ASEAN Digital Economy Framework Agreement, or DEFA, aimed at building a trusted digital trade environment. We are also advancing instant payment connectivity, sustainable investment guidelines, and unique business identifiers to better integrate SMEs across our region. As ASEAN Chair in 2026, the Philippines will build on this momentum with a focus on concluding the DEFA, strengthening AI governance for MSMEs, enhancing cross-border payment interoperability, and scaling up green economy investments. We also view the development of complementary regional supply chains and new economic partnerships as essential to long-term SME resilience. Nationally, we are working to expand access to finance, markets, and climate-aligned opportunities. We look forward to sharing our experiences and lessons at the roundtable discussions, particularly on how we are equipping MSMEs to compete in increasingly digital, connected, and sustainability-driven markets. But tools are not enough. Trade rules must evolve to become responsive to the needs of MSMEs. Too often, disciplines are firm-size neutral in theory, but disproportionately burdensome for smaller businesses in practice. This ministerial meeting sends a strong signal that global trade rules must work for MSMEs, not around them. Inclusivity must also go beyond traditional development classifications. The market realities of MSMEs, limited capital, administrative burdens, narrow margins, are experienced by entrepreneurs across all regions. Let us design policies and platforms that respond to these real-world challenges. At the WTO, the Philippines supports ongoing work on services and investment for development, interoperable digital payments and remittances, and facilitating trade in green goods and services. All areas where MSMEs can benefit from inclusive and enabling multilateral disciplines. This ministerial meeting should be a launchpad for continued cooperation. The Philippines is committed to working with ITC, South Africa, and all partners to carry this shared agenda forward by placing MSMEs at the heart of economic transformation that delivers true sustainable and inclusive development and helps achieve SDG 1, which promises to end poverty in all its forms. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And we have our final speaker, who is Her Excellency Helene Budliger Atida, State Secretary for Economic Affairs from Switzerland. Please come to the podium.